This episode was originally posted on my another podcast called Control Alt Regulate. Awesome. Hey, Morgan, thanks for making time. Welcome. Hope everything is okay. Happy Friday. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. I'm so glad to be here, Neeraj. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, when you and I we spoke as part of our introduction, it's so impressive to see your background because I mean, I'm eventually you're gonna share your background, like how you started and how did you end up here in so successful in this career. So folks, the way we are planning to do this, Morgan will start with her introductions, and then she's one of the leaders in data and AI. We will talk about data and AI, and then we switch gears towards AI governance. And then main idea here is that AI governance is very new. A lot of CIOs, CTOs, they're still trying to wrap up their heads as part of the AI agents, AI agentic workforce, which they are trying to build to improve the productivity of their enterprises, organizations. And those agentic workforce comes with a lot of challenges when it comes to security and governance. So, Morgan, let's start with your introduction.
Well, thank you. Gosh, where do we start? So, I love technology, and I am so enthralled with AI. I spent most of my young childhood, like most of us, playing video games, but also coding my own video games, and so I love that. And I'm not a coder. I stopped coding about 15 years ago, but about before that, I was doing digital transformations, and I worked my way up from being an entry level secretary. Of course, that's not all I ever did. I always said yes. The theme of my introduction is say yes to things. And so I built my career through um, taking on extra assignments. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. And that led me to every year changing my job title for like 22 years every year, because I was always ready to take on the new thing. But doing digital transformation really made me look at the data and understand what it was and why we were using it and how we were using it in an engineering way. I come from the business, so I didn't come from the technology side at all. But coming up through the business side of things and having to navigate that bridge between the business and the technology teams, I really learned what it meant to govern. And so I was asked to create a program, and everything kind of went from there. So I guess you would say in the last 25 years, when I did a big reset in my life after the dot-com bust in 2000, um, started over in healthcare, worked my way up from essentially secretary to chief data officer of a $20 billion enterprise. And then now I've been on my own for a couple of years with a partner, and we have our own company where we help people get ready for data and AI readiness.
Very nice. I think this is the most inspiring part for me, which I mentioned to you during our introduction, that you started from the bottom, and then as you started learning more about data, AI, governance, and various other things in technology. You climbed the ladder, and then during that process, you learned, and I'm sure you have motivated many folks during that journey. You know, um, when I speak with leaders, and it's very clear that there's a corporate governance, then there's a data governance, and now there's a AI governance. And I think this is where I want to switch gears because it's very clear that you bring the a top to down view because most of my folks, most of my audience, they are very technical folks. So we go from bottoms up, like we go from technology to business. And something very important you mentioned, and this is something I learned from my mentor, that the most important thing as an engineer, as a technical person, which I used to be, is building the bridge between business and technology. If somehow you have that skill, you can make a lot of money, right?
I
And
think
then
you're right. Yeah.
yeah, and I think this is where you brought up a very good point, and this is where I want you to share your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom, coming from top to down on building that governance practice that you built. And as you unravel that story, I think we will tap into the data and AI piece.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Building data and AI governance and really starting there. I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, I was asked to start a data governance program, and maybe farther back than that. Anyway, I was, like I said, I was doing digital transformation, and they said, "Hey, by the way, in addition to this $200 million, a little bit less than $200 million portfolio of projects you're running, will you start data governance for the company?" Okay, sure. Which really meant that I had to learn how to do data classification. I was already deeply into data modeling and having to really understand like that engineering component that we do with data quality and running validation checks, and all those things that from a technical point of view are really important. So I learned through that very quickly while also navigating the business side of my career. So it was really when I got done setting up that program, we built that bridge. We brought the business in to understand enough of how do you do mastering data, how do you bring people together to understand what it means to put a classification level on data, and really being able to speak data and data literacy. And I think those are important components of that really are a theme through my journey of being able to really change my career was speaking both languages, business and technology. I always used to say I speak tech. I even had it on my resume for a while. I'm a business leader, but I speak tech because it is a different language. We do talk differently when we're talking about engineering and those actual functional components. So I think that from that point, I realized this was actually pretty hard to do. So I wrote a couple of books on how to do data governance. So Get Governed is the first one, which is really a how-to how to do data governance, and then a culture of governance is just how to do the change management that you have to do after you've done your data governance. And I really think that where AI governance kind of came in is in the last, well, my teams have built AI for a long time. So I've been AI is not new. And I think that's something we need to remind people. AI is not new. It's something that we've built, gosh, I don't know, 20 years ago. We've been building models, we've been building engineering, APIs and things that are automated that really are the equivalent of an AI today. Um, Not large language models, but actual machine learning type of AI. And so when I started doing AI governance, it was really there where we started talking to the analysts and the analytics and and getting them involved in governance, because it was more than just the business teams or the technology teams, but that group of data scientists and business intelligence folks that are building out models to utilize data in AI types of ways. They struggled with being governed, and I'll just say that I'm without accusing anybody. It is really hard to help them understand how what they do with the model is part of data governance, and it's because we didn't have really that title of AI governance. So we called it analytics governance. And analytics governance and AI and data governance never really meshed. But once we started talking about AI governance, well, you have to talk about both of them because you have to have the AI, but it literally eats the data. That's its food. And if you don't have good data, so if you're not working together on good data and good data governance, then you just can't do AI. And so, or you really shouldn't. I guess I won't say you can't. You can, but it's why AI projects fail. And so, really, that's the key right there. Why do AI projects fail? The data wasn't ready.
Yeah,
Easy
very good
answer.
point. After this episode, I will share a couple of links with you on the Gartner research. Actually, last week, two of the posts I saw on from Gartner talking about AI governance, and and then what they did is they actually educated the audience that as part of the AI governance, what are the different mandatory pillars, features they need, like AI catalog. AI prompt inspection, enforcement, and evaluation, many other things. So it's very clear that Gartner is also now picking up on this AI governance component. I think leaders are still a little confused. not all of them, but still there's a lot of confusion because the pressure from the Wall Street, the pressure from the community itself is so huge that every big enterprise wants to do something on AI. They want to launch their AI agents, their agentic workforce, and I think during this process, they are not thinking about AI governance as I speak. This is my understanding so far. What is your take on this?
Well, completely agree. In fact, we just did some research on it as well, and pulled that about 80, I might have these two numbers mixed up. 84% of companies want to do something with AI, or they have started doing something with AI, and 87% of companies that are doing something with AI have reported failure. And it goes right back to they didn't spend time or money on fixing the data first. Now, there are some new ways using agentic AI, which is really exciting about how you utilize AI itself to help clean up the data that it needs. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. But I think the biggest thing is, while everybody really wants AI, there are things you can do. There are things that you can try, but you do have to be governed. And so I would say you have to assign someone centrally to be the authority. And that's where that chief AI officer has started to show up. And then you have to give people the opportunity to experiment, because there are so many ways you can use AI. And for individual productivity, like I use 11 tools that are different AIs, and I use at least four a day. And it really enhances my productivity and helps me get going. And so, from my point of view, if somebody locked that down and said you can't use any of those, I'd be like, all right, well then I need four more people because they're doing these jobs. And it's not like I got rid of four people. I just am now more productive because I started using these AI tools, and I can really manage more work and get things done. Um, I don't know that all executives have really that, I guess I would say, technical bent that they're excited about AI and are willing to experiment with it. But there are people in every organization that are. And so if we have that central person, they have the authority to set a security and risk guardrail, that this is where, as far as you can go, this is the kind of data you can touch. We've got data that's classified, or there's that is safe, or we have data that's a synthetic data set that you can utilize to try your AI on, but you can't just use it on everything, because that it is a security risk. But if you do that and you set those governance guardrails, and then you've actively pursued an AI strategy, we've done some exploration. We're looking for time savers, or we're looking for the ability to research our own data to help with say marketing campaigns, and where we have additional opportunities, we use AI, to do those, like I said, those four people's tasks. Like I don't have a data modeler, so I've been data modeling myself, and now I use eraser.io, and I tell it what I want, and I get this beautiful model, and it's amazing. And there are lots of tools that I use, even just to generate code and bring that over, that I don't want to code myself, or I really can't. Let's just be honest. Yeah, that's way too far back in my past, but I can generate code with natural language processing and bring that over into our environment and be able to utilize that. Even as a leader, it's not that far outside of what I need to do anyway. So I think that the those are really the main things.
Yeah.
So assign someone, set guardrails, and then pursue an AI strategy.
Yeah. All right. Morgan, let's do one thing. Let's solve a problem. Let me throw a problem to you. Um, the the balance between innovation and accountability. Let's say I'm an engineer. I am an AI engineer. I want to test out all the LLMs, and I want to build some really cool AI prompts, AI agents, a lot of stuff on my LLMs. I want to enhance those LLMs on the daily basis. I do not care about governance. I don't care about security. I just need to build these amazing agents so I can show it to my boss. And now you are coming from the AI governance side. You're gonna say, "Hey, listen, stop. You are downloading all this stuff. You're we don't know what you're doing with this stuff, and now eventually you're going to start feeding, let's say, synthetic data, But in that synthetic data, there's still some logic related to the enterprise, some information you're feeding to these LLMs, and we don't know what's going to happen next, right? So I'm going to say, okay, Morgan, you want me to be accountable for security and governance while innovating. Help me to do things in a right way. And then this is where you come in as an AI governance leader. You're going to say, these are the n number of things that you have to do to make sure that you don't bypass security and governance. Could you walk me through and the audience that what are those different things that you want me to follow as part of the AI governance authority?
So that's a great use case. And I guess I would say the first thing that I would want you to do is make sure that the models that you're utilizing have been essentially registered with the AI office. So we know what it is you're trying to use. If there's anybody else in the company also trying to use that model, we'd want you to be connected and we'd want your experimentation to be together. So I think really just kind of foundationally bringing it and making sure that we know what you're doing. If you once you've then been approved to go ahead and bring that in and work with somebody or not, then I would ask you to um, identify what data you were going to use to run this LLM against. Someone told me yesterday that, well, your LLM is trained without any of your personal data. You don't need any of your company data in it. I said, yes. That's like a person who just graduated with their PhD. They've never had a job. And then they come to your company and they have all this knowledge and don't know anything about your business. And that's what bringing an LLM in is like. So you bring that LLM in, and it doesn't know anything about your business. So you have to train it. So what data are you going to use to train it? So we have to have set up some kind of a sandbox, and we have to have set up some kind of data set. Synthetic data probably would be ideal so that it's not actually going to be reverse engineerable. That's not a word. Anyway, you know what I mean. Yeah, so setting up the right environment. So you've done that, you've registered it in the environment. We know that you're using it, and then you need to run. I mean, there's some experimentation. I'd like to say that you should plan your tests and run your tests in the typical engineering way. But to be honest with you, in this world of there are so many tools, just being able to play with it is really the best way to learn it. And so, having the freedom then to say, I'm just going to play with it. I'm going to document what I learn. And every time I play with it, I'm going to document those things that I did and what were the outcomes. And then we're going to have to do some kind of A/B kind of testing. So that's kind of what we have to do before something could be brought into a production environment. And of course, once you find something that you want to go into a production environment, you do need to have the justification for that. So what is the cost? What is the value to the company? Who will use this? Why will they use it? How will it help the organization? And then who's going to own that? So you have to think about all of those things. So that's what I would tell you right there is, have you done those things? Let's get you a checklist. Check, check, check. And once you know that what you're bringing in is safe, that it works, that there's value for the organization, and that it's not just a fun tool. Really, it's important that we do that before we spend a lot of money bringing it into a full production environment.
Very nice. Yeah. I so NIST, the government authority, so they actually published a AI governance framework white paper, and in that white paper they said you have to follow three steps: map, measure, and manage. So when you are launching your AI agents, your agentic workforce, you want to make sure that you are mapping those agents in a way where you have end-to-end metadata, end-to-end integration with your existing ecosystem for the productivity point of view. And then you have to manage those agents on the ongoing basis. And then you have to observe, you have to monitor these agents, what they're doing. So, visibility, evaluation frameworks, enforcements. So, these are the topics which keep popping up into my conversation with various leaders. And, this is where Gartner or is saying about the AI governance that AI catalog. Now, we are moving away from data catalog now. Or actually, we are upgrading data catalog to AI catalog, where you have a full visibility of all these agents, what they're doing, and what information was fed, what information came out. Because as a security person, for example, if I'm a infosec, I'm a security guy, I want to see what Morgan is doing with my prompts and agents, for my own sanity. As you said, right? The synthetic data and your confidential data being fed to these agents, you want to make sure how these agents are behaving in production. So Morgan, one thing which I notice that folks in the industry right now, they have done a lot of work on AI prompts. And I think, and this is just my opinion based on what I have learned from other leaders, that the industry is still struggling to put agents in production, and especially multi agents into production. And I think that brings up the question, um, how long will it take for us, for the enterprises, to get into that ROI model, where I am putting all this money and time on AI by spending so much resources on figuring out the LLMs. Eventually there needs to be some kind of ROI, and the ROI will come when the agents are running in production. They are r- enhancing the productivity of existing workforce, where we don't have to hire more people. We can improve the productivity of existing workforce by enabling them on the AI agents. Now, what is your take on the path of this AI agents agentic workforce going into production, and what are the challenges? How we can help our community to understand that what do they need to do when it comes to getting those agents in production?
Well, I think, where you started is the challenge is the data. It really is. We're talking about AI data, and Gartner's talking about having your AI catalog, but it really is your data catalog on steroids. But it's the metadata. We don't have the metadata captured for most of our information. Typical data governance chases 10 to 20% of the information that's structured. 80% of your information in your company is unstructured. And so if you are not actually able to get to that information with some metadata to understand how to use it or why to use it, you've got a risk or you've got a missed opportunity. And I think that that's part of that experimentation that we need to do. We need to start working on getting that unstructured data available. And so that's super important. But actually putting AI agents into production, I've mapped the NIST framework as well as the EU AI capabilities, or excuse me, EU AI Act into the AI data and analytics capabilities with EDM Council. So we spent 2 years mapping NIST, mapping EU, mapping Singapore, mapping all of the different regulations around the country or around the world that we can garner, and understanding what they mean holistically. Putting AI agents into production shouldn't be any different than putting any other kind of code into production. I think the challenge is that engineers building AI versus data scientists building AI still has that clash of culture. And so you have to really start thinking about the fact that this is a joint activity. It requires both. I have a great friend who's a data scientist, and I'm not. And so she and I have an agreement. It's like we've worked together in the past, and I can take it so far, and then I have to hand it over to analytics. But then she has to take it so far and then pull us back in. One of those requirements is continuous monitoring. And continuous doesn't mean once in a while you look at the logs. It means 100% of the time, all of that information, all of those models are being measured and being watched for bias, watched for drift, watched for any kind of problem in them, missing data, inaccurate calculations, all the different things that can happen, right? So they have to be continuously monitored. Well, the data scientists don't do that. That falls down into engineering. There you go. You've tied it back again into the whole circle. And we all work together to build AI into our organizations. And companies that won't bring that holistic picture together are not going to succeed, because you can't do AI just in the analytics layer. You have to bring it into your production environment on production data with the right security and controls.
Very nice. Yeah. Let's switch gears, and I actually want to talk about the mistakes the leaders they have made, and to enlighten the community, and then how can we recover from those mistakes? So you have spent so much time in data and AI governance. You have written two books on the topic, and by the way, we can find your books on Amazon.
Yeah, they're both on Amazon.
Okay, could you mention the book names?
Sure. The first one is Get Governed, Building World Class Data Governance Programs. And that's a how to on how to get started with data governance. And the second one is A Culture of Governance, which was really just kind of a reaction to the fact that people said, I need some change management help. How do we actually move this through the organization? So it's really more a book about creating culture around data governance.
Very nice. So the second book is mainly, today as a leader, if I want to build a center of excellence around my governance data for AI, data and AI. So basically, that book I can pick it up and I can just build that center of excellence.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it's designed to do is help you grow your program and I use the mnemonic govern. And so grow your program, operationalize and optimize, value your program, enrich your data, revisit core principles, and then I always say neutralize naysayers, but it's also new is always better. So do something new. And so really that's the framework that that book kind of goes through and gives you some change management helpful
Nice,
tips.
nice. All right. Now, I want to actually talk about the topic of this mistakes. I always tell folks that you should be aware of fear of unknown. And, sure, I am following all the guidelines, I'm doing all the right things, but still, there's so many unknowns in this space. So, my question to you is, as you have written those two books, there's a lot of research and there's a lot of self discipline comes into the picture when you write books. During this journey, did you get a chance to navigate or explore or penetrate into the mistakes some leaders they make while doing AI?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mistakes, and I try not to focus on people's mistakes. I always try to look at we're in this situation now. What's our opportunity to fix that? But I have seen leaders who've just like opened the floodgates, and everybody can use AI on anything. And then you suddenly have risks that happen in your regulatory shell. We've got some unknown, like some unknown note taker who's showing up for confidential meetings and taking notes for somebody who isn't there, and that hasn't been approved. And wherever that's getting stored hasn't been evaluated. And there have been data breaches that are happening for sure. I know that using agentic AI, which I'm a huge fan of, um, there are hackers who are using agentic AI. And so I guess one of the other really big mistakes that I'm aware of is not so much that we did something wrong, but the hackers are using agentic AI and have hacked into an organization and now have them under ransomware. So I know of two big organizations. I won't say who specifically, but one of them is a United States state, the entire state, um, has their data under ransomware. And there's a healthcare system that has their data under ransomware and has for almost 2 years, which means they have to continue to pay this fee so they can continue to care for their patients. And agentic AI was a big part of cracking those shells. And so we have to think about agentic AI. And even if you don't want to do it and you say, we're not ready, well, guess what? The hackers are. And so you still have to secure against it because it thinks faster than we do. It can solve problems faster than we can, and it will. And so we really have to think about our security and risk management shell around our organization from both sides, not just what we're doing internally, but what's happening on the outside.
Yeah, very good point. And as we are marching towards quantum computing, quantum AI agents, and I don't know how they're gonna overlap or they're gonna get combined from the hacking point of view, right? Now you right now you can run those agents in less than milliseconds, and they can go penetrate into so many things, and you will not have a time to react. So I don't know how the future is gonna unfold. Um, Morgan, a question which always comes up. Okay, sure, we know we need AI governance. we need AI security in place. We want to make sure that agents are ready to perform in production. Any advice that you have from the tooling perspective, strategy, and anything that you want to share from your experience there, where we can do better AI?
Yes, so there's a new, I guess I'll say a new way of doing of getting your data ready. And it's not really new, but it's newly coming out into the market. I'm affiliated with a company that's doing it. I know of a couple others that are doing it, where we can go out and find all of your unstructured data and catalog it and create essentially a three-dimensional model wherever your data lies. And once you've done that, then it is much safer to bring in AI because you have your metadata and your classification of all of your data. Data that isn't classified, and by classified, I mean, private, public, top top secret, I guess we would say, but corporate secrets, IP, that kind of thing. Those kind of classifications, personal health information of PII, that kind of thing, they have to be tagged and they have to be classified. And once they're classified, then you can actually say to an AI, here are your parameters. This is what you can and can't do. And so I think that's a really important thing that's happening right now is that ability to look at all of your data, not just what you think is most important because it's where the business interacts. Because the business only interacts, like I said earlier, 10 to 20% of the data of your organization is where the business interacts. The rest of your data is transactions happening in the background. Your marketing team is running trending. There are reports and business intelligence happening. You've got people who are writing code, you're building new projects, you've got all of this other data, you're implementing a new CRM, all of that is now you're mapping the data. Knowing where all of that is happening and having at any given time the ability to say, where is our data, because you are using AI to hold that shell. That I think it's groundbreaking, and it's really probably the first thing I've ever seen that says yes, AI is ready. And what I think about that is that that's a pivot. Instead of thinking about what we do now of, well, I use only this much data and you use that much data, and it doesn't matter that my definition of a word and your definition of a word are different. That does matter when you're talking about AI. And so it's really that getting the business to realize you're going to have to pivot, and it's a pivot from I control it to I'm accountable for something that controls it. And now we can move forward into AI. Now we can, move into that next phase where artificial intelligence, just like the internet, becomes part of our daily life, becomes part of what we do every day, and how we utilize data in general.
Oh, I love it. Last 7 years or so, I have spent time in the startup that I'm working for on the data governance side. And at the time, 2016, 2017 of the days, data governance was very new. So I used to explain exactly what you just said: three pillars of data governance: data classification, data identification, data access management, and data encryption at rest at the attribute level. Now, as we are switching towards AI governance, now I explain to my customers and potential customers that AI governance is all about you want to make sure that you have full visibility about of your agents, what they're doing, AI catalog, going back to the mapping and many other things. And then you have a evaluation framework where you can evaluate your agents before you put them into production. And the last piece is the enforcement of permission that if Morgan is coming to a prompt and Morgan is trying to access the data she's not entitled to access. By default, the prompt should say, Morgan, you're not allowed to see this information. And the prompt stops right there. So this is where I think the future is going. I know the space is going to expand really, really fast because, Gartner is looking at it very closely. Morgan, I think as we make more progress on this space, I would love to bring you back on the show and talk more about it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, there is so much happening. It's amazing to see where we're going. Um, you mentioned one thing that made me kind of I want to mention again. So you just said giving access at the data element level. That is the difference in security that we have the ability and the need to do with AI. We used to say yeah, you can have access to that system. And I'm a chief data officer. I have a bunch of directors and engineers and whatever who work for me. I have to be able to say yes every quarter. I approve your access, but I'm approving it at the system level, not at the data element level. And
Yes.
when we use AI, we have to have that at the data element or data object level. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. And I didn't want to miss that little nugget
All right.
there
Yeah.
because you said it and then we went on. But I'd love to come back. There's
Yeah.
so much that I'm working on right now with people. A lot of it under NDAs, but some of it is actually very public with the Enterprise Data Management Council, the EDM Council, and also the Data Leaders Group, so dataleaders.org. And we're working on an AI framework, governance framework that we're going to publish. And so those are the two places I volunteer my time. So
I love it.
I would love to have an opportunity to come back and share some of that.
Awesome. Morgan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Better You. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into today's topic and found some valuable insights to help you on your growth journey. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a review and share Better You with your friends. Together, let's continue exploring the exciting world of tech and business. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and keep growing.